Welcome in to Cover Crimson. That is Clint Lamb. My name is EG, and we make up Cover Crimson, this fun show where we give you all of the Alabama football content that we possibly can. It is Thursday of LSU Alabama week. We have a lot for you today. We're going to go over Clint's keys to the game. I love doing this with you guys because Clint is so knowledgeable of this game, of this sport, and I always end up learning something, so I'm hoping that you will too. Clint, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. Looking forward to the game getting underway. Are you nervous about this game at all, EG?
I mean, I think there's a level of uncertainty that comes when you have some interims and you have some people in different positions than normal. It being in Bryant Denny is wonderful. I think that we have seen the proven track record of this team and Coach DeBoer inside of Bryant Denny, but I would be lying if I didn't say there's a little unknown that's stirring for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's supposed to be some level of nerves, regardless of what happened with Brian Kelly. I think there would be, but I think especially with him no longer being the head coach, you really don't know what to expect from the offensive side, and we'll be talking about that a little bit with these keys. But yeah, I feel confident in the way Alabama has played all year. They figured out ways to win. We continue to say that, and so I have no doubt that they will be competitive on Saturday, and I believe that they will figure out a way to win, but there are going to be a few things that play into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get off your first key to the game.
For me, the number one is going to be stopping the run. And I know that sounds strange because LSU has not been a very good rushing offense, but with Frank Wilson now being the head coach, I felt like Brian Kelly, for one reason or another, he would abandon the run. Sometimes it would be effective. Sometimes I think it was effective only because it was kind of so much of a change of pace that it would catch defenses off guard. But now that they're going to be committed to running the football, and even if it's not working early, they're going to stay committed to it. Alabama has struggled at times to stop the chunk run plays. If you allow LSU to get one or two of those, people remember last year early in the game, they allowed a big chunk play on the ground. Actually ended up doing a pretty good job after that. But, you know, if you're allowing LSU to get what they need on the ground, then you really start getting Garrett Nussmeier's confidence going in that passing attack when you can use play action off of it. They got weapons in the passing game. So you're trying to put LSU's offense as often as possible in those unfavorable situations because I think especially at tackle, they're, vulnerable, and Alabama's pass rush is really starting to come on. But in order to get in those situations where you can pin your ears back, you have to be able to stop the run, make sure that LSU, what they've had to be offensively up to this point, they continue to have to be, and that is an offense that really can't run the football, can throw the football at times, but that a lot of that is dictated based off of the defense. With Alabama's secondary, I do think they should be able to have some success against LSU as well.
One thing I keep hearing about LSU from the staff, from players, that they're explosive and they're a dangerous team. I think you hit the nail on the head with some of the reasoning behind that. Another thing that I've continuously heard describing this game is how physical and the physicality. I sat down with Coach Sheridan yesterday, and he said that the one thing that sticks out to him from last year's game, obviously he was the offensive coordinator, was just how physical this game is. And so I think when you're talking about stopping the run, even though that's not something that LSU necessarily leans on, it's going to be so important because of those other factors.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it is a physical game. It's always going to be physical. LSU has some weak spots, and I think their weak spots right now, like their inability to run the football, Alabama's, problem. If you say anything on defense, early it was probably also the inability to consistently affect the quarterback. I do think that continues to be a problem at times, but I think they're getting much more effective at that. So, I think that's a weakness or issue that's kind of been addressed. But one thing that we don't know as far as stopping the run, I think Tim Keenan has actually helped on a down-in, down-out basis. I think Yanze Pierre is doing some good things as far as setting the edge against the run. LT Everton always is going to be a stout run defender. They've got dudes up front, but, making sure that LSU doesn't get a whole lot out to the perimeter, get those defensive backs in isolation, those one-on-one matchups. Never want to see that. But, I definitely think that Alabama's defense right now is playing good football. It hadn't been perfect football, but I think it really complements what the offense is doing. So I would expect that to continue, but stopping the run, Garrett Nussmeier, I don't think he's 100%. The tackle play, speaking candidly, it's been atrocious up to this point. And with the true freshman, I forget his name, but that was starting at left tackle. Their starting left tackle's out. The freshman that they ended up benching their backup for, in recent weeks, he might not be available. So they might have to go back to that backup that's really struggled. And if they have to do that, Alabama can tee off and have some success. So I would fully expect them to make sure that LSU in controlling the tempo and momentum of the game by having early down success. Because if they get in a lot of very favorable second and third down situations, I don't think that bodes well for Alabama's defense. So make sure you're able to earn those opportunities to get after Garrett Nussmeier, because if you can, I think you'll have some success, whether that be sacking him or maybe forcing him into, one or two poor decisions.
And last week, I got to sit down with Brooks Austin, the film guy. You guys know him, you love him on EG and Friends. You guys can go check that one out. We also have another EG and Friends episode coming very soon, so make sure you check the LSU week one. But Brooks Austin was talking about exactly what you're saying, Clint, about how important it is for Alabama's defense to stop the run. And I want to touch on what you said about how, at the beginning of the season, it was affecting the quarterback. I quite literally asked Kane Womack on a Monday, how do you get the quarterback on the ground? And I think that was after FSU, I want to say. It was after FSU or shortly in the weeks following. And that has been something that we have seen really tangible improvement on. And I think that Alabama fans and, media alike are seeing the fruits of that label and how they did tweak some things schematically and fundamentally to allow for that. Now it's, okay, can that translate to stopping the run? We are to almost midway through November. Not really. It feels like we're midway through November. We're at the first week of November. But Alabama has made it this far, still struggling in that area, if you will. And they found different ways to win. But I think that as you enter November, what's the phrase? Everyone remembers what you do November. You have to kind of unlock that next phase of the defense.
That is exactly right. And over the course of last season, the defense continuously got better. And so I think we've seen something similar this year. Guys are starting to figure some things out. And when you talk about some of the key injuries, Jeremiah Beaman, Quay Russaw, like guys being banged up or suspended at various points, like James Smith missing the first half of the Vanderbilt game. Like these were potentially major issues, but through Alabama building depth by rotating a lot of players on that side of the football, I actually think it has been very advantageous. And like Jan Zapier, he had been playing a little bit. He had played some last year. He had earned some opportunities. And, I think that experience really helped him once he had to become not only the full-time guy, but like a heavily relied on playing most snaps. He's really started to emerge. Now, I still think there's some things that he needs to clean up as far as consistency, but whether it be as a run defender or as a pass rusher, I think he's been a very, very good defender for Alabama. Now you're getting closer to Quay Russaw being back. What does that end up looking like once he's able to return? We'll have to wait and see. But either way, Alabama's defense is going to get better when he gets back. And so
great,
go ahead.
I would say great timing too on getting Quay back. I mean, you really want him progressing and getting back on the field this time of year. And Coach Womack consistently says too, great teams keep getting better. There's continuous improvement. And you said it last season. We saw how the defense did that. And it's exciting to see how both sides of the ball are fitting that mold as we continue to go out throughout the season.
Absolutely. Like, in Alabama's defense, like Deontay Lawson is starting to play his best football. Tim Keenan's playing his best football. Jan Zapier continues to get better each and every week. LT Overton, he hadn't really made the number of impactful plays that a lot of people, including myself, were kind of hoping that he would, but I think he's been steady and solid. So he's still continued to be, in some ways, a problem for opposing offenses. You talk about the back half of the defense, and a guy like Trey'Dez Green, which is another key to this game, in my opinion. He's a big body guy, 6'7", 245 pounds, mismatch problem, plays a ton in the slot. They'll play him on the perimeter. Plays about a fourth of his snaps as an inline guy, so really don't have to worry about that too much. They got another player that they use as kind of their primary blocking or primary inline tight end, so he's really just a big body receiver. And trying to match up against not only the size and length that he brings to the table, but also the speed is going to be something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And Jimmy and I have talked about it all week. But how do they end up doing that? It'll be a committee effort. I mean, they're not going to have anybody shadow him when he's lining up out on the perimeter. It's going to be Xavier Brown or Dijon Lee or potentially Damani Jackson. When it's in the slot, it's Deshaun Jones. It's, maybe a linebacker, maybe it's a safety, Bray Hubbard or Keon Sabb.
Mhm.
I do think from a size athleticism standpoint, Dijon Lee is obviously the closest to that, but that you're only going to see that situationally when he's playing out there on the perimeter. As far as in the slot, if you can maybe get Zay Mincy, who's got that length and he's also got a lot of athleticism, if you could get him matched up in certain situations, I could see that being a beneficial matchup for Alabama, where maybe you can try to slow him down a little bit. But like Red Morgan, scrappy
Mhm.
guy, is really physical for a player his size. But when you talk
Yeah.
about the fact that he isn't overly big, trying to go against a 6'7", 245-pound pass catcher, that's kind of what you would call a mismatch in a lot of ways. So I don't know how much. I'm sure you'll see Red Morgan, but I just think situationally, we'll have to wait and see how they try to match up against him. But that's one of those where they've really started to lean on Green in recent weeks. That's been extremely beneficial for their offense. He's a safety blanket, but also an explosive playmaker. He's a red zone threat. And, Alabama really needs to be careful, because if they can stop the run, and then, obviously Garrett Nussmeier has to start force feeding the passing game, also limiting the impact of a guy like Green, who is probably going to be somebody, him and Aaron Anderson would be the, first two, as far as if Alabama's pass rush is having a lot of success getting after Garrett Nussmeier. You want to get the football out of his hands quickly. Could see Green and Aaron Anderson being the beneficiaries of that. If you can keep them under wraps, then you can maybe have a lot of success against this LSU offense.
Yeah, Red Morgan was a guy that I feel like we haven't really talked a ton about this season, but he's someone that Coach Walmack has said has made strides, especially because he played as a true freshman. They stuck him out there. And, he consistently has, done the little things right. And I think what a lot of, especially with the secondary, what they're looking for is not necessarily, yes, like they want them to make the big plays. I was talking to Coach Mo about this yesterday. The big plays have to happen. Yes, those will come. But it's also about every little thing that you do before that. And even kind of going back to LT Overton, he might not be making those splashy plays, but he's being consistent and solid, like you said. And at times that's just as important as getting, the big sack, as getting the tackle for loss and things like that. And so I just think it's interesting how when you look at the different elements of this defense, it's not random why they're playing so well. And part of it is because of the guys that are consistently doing the little things right.
That's a great point. I think you can trust guys to do their jobs pretty consistently. Now, once again, it's not always perfect. It's never going to be perfect. But as far as, what you're getting from Tim Keenan, what you're
Mhm.
getting from LT Overton. At this point, I still think there's some work to be done as far as Yanze Pierre on that front, but he's starting to do things a lot more consistently, whether that be as a run defender or as a pass rusher. And you definitely know that he's an impact player. Deontay Lawson, as long as he's healthy, which he is getting closer and closer to being fully healthy, I mean, what you're going to be getting from him.
Right.
Justin Jefferson has struggled with consistency, but I think he's starting to find that
With
and really
some
starting to find it.
flashes.
Oh yeah, he's been.
Yeah.
And then Nikai Hill Green. I mean, to me, once he really got going for Colorado last year and he got used to the system and being in a new environment, he was the definite. Now, granted, that I'm not saying there's not limitations, especially from a coverage standpoint at times, but from a consistency standpoint, exactly what you're getting from Nikai
Mhm.
Hill Green. So really at all three levels, you can make an argument for a lot of different guys. And because you're playing, a Dijon Lee out there on the perimeter, you're going to get up and down play. That's part of him being a freshman and going through some of those growing pains. But every bit of experience that he gets, it's only going to help him as far as becoming more consistent. And I think that overall, as far as the physicality and the willingness to come up and help and run support, or as far as, getting on, quick passes out to the perimeter, getting through blocks, fighting through blocks, I think he's doing that, at a much higher level than Damani Jackson was. Now, granted, it's post bye week. This would be a great chance for Damani to really start getting things back on track. But, he's got to put his head down and go to work and battle, because he's got a true freshman who's a really good football player who's really, it feels like he's getting better each and every week. So, really at all three levels, Alabama's got guys who are really starting to play with more consistency within the scheme, within what Kane Womack wants to do. And while, once again, there's still issues, I think from being able to get stops when you need it, get turnovers when you need it, it's really starting to come together and really complement what the offense is giving you, which is a ball control style. And, while they're not going to put up tons of points because they do hold on to the football a lot, They're able to be very efficient with their offensive drives, and typically, especially as of late, they're starting to convert a lot more of those into touchdowns and not having to settle for field goals. So I think that's helping as well.
Yeah, well, it's a production-based business, as we've heard the last couple of weeks. With that, are we on your third key? Because was green your second key?
Yes. And
All
so
right.
third and final key, which you can say 100 things if you wanted to, but the ones that's really important, like you notice trends. You look at Diego Pavia, you look at Chambliss with Ole Miss, you look at Marcel Reed. All three of these guys had quite a bit of success as quarterbacks on the ground. And when you look at games that maybe were teams that were good enough to beat LSU but didn't beat LSU, you talk about Cade Klubnik at Clemson, you talk about Lenore Sellers in South Carolina, DJ Lagway in Florida. There's a stark difference between the success that the quarterback had on the ground and that team's ability to beat LSU. And so while Ty Simpson's legs have not been a massive factor, it has been to an extent as far as, maneuvering in the pocket, escapability, getting out, extending plays. You haven't seen a whole lot from him. Maybe at times a carry here or a carry there, go off script a little bit and make a play with his legs. You haven't seen that a ton. But I think that, obviously they're going to try to get the run game going themselves. I have no doubt about that. They're going to try to get the vertical passing game going. I have no doubt about that. But I think that just getting Ty Simpson's legs involved a little bit more, avoid the massive hits, don't get yourself hurt, don't put yourself at risk. And I understand that the way that Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb want to win offensively, they don't want to put their quarterback at risk as far as taking the big hits. But I just think LSU's defense, especially without Whit Weeks, it's susceptible to allowing creases for the quarterback. And so I'm hoping to see Ty Simpson utilize that when those are available, because if he can pick up some key gains, maybe on a third down, or maybe it's a second long and you end up getting a 7, 8, 9-yard gain, and now it's a very manageable third down, or maybe you pick up a first down there. Either way, just figuring out ways to create with your legs. Doesn't have to be Jalen Milroe against LSU last year. No one's asking him to do that, but just make sure that you're kind of on the winning side of that. And then also what's hurt Lenore Sellers and DJ Lagway and Cade Klubnik was some of the sack yardage. So as far as the numbers, actually all three of those quarterbacks did a little bit better than the numbers would indicate, but then they would take the negative plays, get the positive plays on the ground from top, but don't take the unnecessary sacks and then give that up. Where if he has a certain rushing number at the end of the game, 40, 50 yards, maybe a sack ends up pushing him back a little bit or something, I think that would probably be enough. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, because I think Alabama's passing attack can compensate, but I think getting him involved a little bit more in the run game could be beneficial for Alabama.
What were your thoughts on the quarterbacks that he models his game after? Did you see it was Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, and I'm missing one. Let me see.
Yeah, Jared Goff was the one that didn't. I mean, maybe I can see it, but I mean, I will say the two players that I've always connected with him from a play style standpoint was Joe Burrow and Baker Mayfield, especially Baker.
Matt Stafford.
Matt Stafford. See, and that's one where it's just like cannon for an arm, little mobility, different style. I mean, I just think Matthew probably possesses some physical gifts that just Ty simply doesn't. But Joe Burrow doesn't have like a stupid, crazy arm. Baker Mayfield never has. In fact, that was kind of a knock on him coming out of Oklahoma. Did he have the arm strength where he warranted being the number 1 overall pick? Obviously, he kind of flamed out in Cleveland, bounced around Carolina with the Rams, but now he's settled in really nicely with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And despite the fact they've had a ton of injuries as far as their pass catchers, I mean, some people have even considered him, at least at one time, in the MVP conversation. So, I think Ty, his ability to win pre and post snap, it's very Joe Burrow-esque. I think the mobility factor, and that Joe didn't rely on it, and he certainly hadn't on the NFL level, but even at LSU, he would pick and choose when he would use his legs, and it was always in those critical moments that always helped extend drives. And that's why LSU's offense, when you combine it with the fact that they had running backs that could run the football, catch the football out of the backfield, tons of playmakers that he could get the football to, whether it be at tight end or at wide receiver, the offensive line, and the fact that it was a pretty good offensive line back in 2019, like when you included Joe's legs with that, it just made that LSU offense that much more lethal. And so Alabama didn't have the completeness. We talked about going into the season that they had the potential to have that completeness. We haven't seen that yet. They're working on the run game. They're working on the vertical passing game. But one element that Joe and Baker, because Baker was great at it too, that Ty can maybe do a little bit more is implementing those legs. If he can do that, I really do think that will add another wrinkle, which I'm not saying the defenses don't already respect his mobility, but just I think that you can catch them off guard. Yeah, exactly. So really looking forward to seeing how that continues. And granted, might not be against LSU, but at some point this season, I'm telling you, someone's going to be on the receiving end of a Ty Simpson unexpected rushing game.
And I cannot wait to clip this when it happens to show everyone that Clint was in the know first. Okay, give me your final score prediction.
Yeah, I was talking about this with Jimmy, and we were talking about, 27-17 or a 28-20 or 27-20. I was at the time looking 7-10 points, and I still think that's very possible. I'm going to give a little bit more benefit to Alabama. I'm going to go ahead and say 30-17. It's a 13-point win. Nothing crazy, less than 2 touchdowns. But I just think that right now, while my head is telling me like 7 to 10 points would probably be the safe range, I'm going to give Alabama just a little bit more credit because I've doubted them at certain points this season after Florida State, not necessarily from are they going to win, but, are they going to cover or something like that? And they didn't cover against South Carolina, but they battled and figured out a way to win.
Yep.
I think at home, that's a massive difference. If this was in Death Valley, Alabama's had a ton of success against LSU in Death Valley. So not saying that they wouldn't, but I think it being at home really helps the offense especially. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that they reach 30 points in this game, maybe 33, maybe ends up being a 33-20, but I'll go ahead and say 30-17 is my final score.
All right, guys, you heard it here first. Thank you guys for watching. We have enjoyed this week bringing you guys all the information that we can. I feel like it's been so long since South Carolina that I am anxious and ready for Bama to take the field on Saturday. It just feels like it's been an eternity.
It has. And it's funny because it's like you got 4 more games. That's great. Maybe potentially, if Alabama's fortunate enough, the SEC championship. But I was about to say, man, I'm so glad that we're done with these bye weeks. But once it gets past the SEC championship, and maybe a week earlier, depending on how the rest of the regular season plays out, might be 1 week earlier than that, but there's going to be a long bye week, and we'll have a lot to talk about. There will be some, for recruiting, like we won't be going anywhere. I don't know what I'm going to do for those few weeks without football, because this is, I'm glad we're hitting a 4-week stretch here, maybe a 5-week stretch where we don't have to worry about Alabama going a weekend without having Alabama football on TV.
I asked Coach Sheridan how neat was the bye yesterday, and he was like, I'm going to be honest, we love the competition. Like, obviously, you can get some benefit from it, but I love that response that it's like, yes, like, obviously, TK said how he's like, thank you, Jesus. Like, it was time we'd get healthy. And then Coach Sheridan's like, but we love the competition. So you have the balance.
100%. And one thing, Kalen DeBoer doesn't go from Washington to Alabama. Nick Sheridan, Ryan Grubb, by way of the NFL, obviously, but Washington to Alabama without wanting to face competition. Like the Lincoln Riley thing, as far as, hey, Oklahoma's going to the SEC, I guess I'll go to USC. Oklahoma's going to the SEC, so I want to go to USC. He ran from competition in the eyes of a lot of people, not this group. They wanted to, and Kane Womack too. Why did he go from, he had a nice head coaching job, he was doing good things at South Alabama. He wanted to step up in competition. He wanted to do it with the biggest and the best. So that's why he came to Alabama. And you're seeing that competitive spirit really be infectious to the entire team.
Okay, we have one more thing we have to tell them, and that is about Roback. I'm wearing Roback. You're wearing Roback.
It's a Roback family.
It is a Roback family. This is the fleece. It's a quarter zip. And like I said, we always talk about the menswear with Roback, and it's fabulous. But you cannot forget the ladies in your life. This is your reminder, guys, who are watching. Christmas is coming soon, and Black Friday is soon. Go ahead and stock up. This is all EG approved. EG approved. I love my Roback. What is the code that they need to use?
Crimson 20 if you want to get 20% off your order. Guys, I'm not going to lie. This exact – I'm one of those that sometimes I get stuff on my shirt when I'm eating, and
Happens to the best of us.
it does. I was eating a chicken wing, and I somehow the grease got out on it, and I freaked out. I'm like, man, I cannot believe I've done this. But the material was able to wipe it away and absolutely no stain. And I'm not kidding.
No
That
way.
100% happened. Yeah, I was at my brother's, and I told my wife, I didn't even touch it. I'm like, because I'm scared I was going to like rub it in, and now you got to. So I was like, babe, I don't know what to do, but help me, please. And she got a wet napkin, and she's like, well, this isn't even like sticking to it. Like it came right off, and I found a shirt that works for me. I'll put it that way.
That is amazing. And ladies who are watching, great gift on both sides. You can't lose with Rhoback. That's what we're trying to convey to you guys. You can't lose. And they have so many different styles. They came out with sets for girls right now, Clint, and for people that are watching. Sets are big right now, like a monochromatic, same color moment. Now Rhoback has them. They also have the all black DeBoer hoodie, their version of it. Could be a great time to purchase.
Winning.
That's all I'm saying. Winning. Okay, with that being said, we will be back to you guys. Make sure you are tuned into post game on Saturday because we'd love to see you there. We've had a lot of fun with that the last couple of weeks. Hopefully, I'll make a little cameo appearance at some point, depending on my schedule, because I'll be at the game this weekend. But Clint will be there holding down the fort. We love to see you there. We love all of the interactions that we get. And you guys have been so fun lately on X, like tweeting at us. We see it all. And we appreciate the kind words, don't we, Clint?
We absolutely do. Yeah. I mean, we've built an awesome community here, and that's exactly what we were aiming to do. It's all about growing it. But, all the people who have been here, they are. Everybody is family. It's why I've said, like, I read the comments. I take y'all's thoughts into consideration. I'm not above anybody here. I know EG feels the same way. We just want to bring you guys the topics and the conversations that will get you through the football season, the off season, and everything in between, because Alabama, I think, is all of our lives in a lot of ways. Yes. Eat, sleep, breathe, the whole thing. So just very appreciative of everybody who's been involved in this journey.
All right, guys, if you've missed any videos, this is your permission. Leave this one and go check them all out, and we will see you on Saturday.